Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Drury. Welcome to a special podcast series presented by the Four County Labor Market Planning Board, which covers Huron, Perth, Bruce, and Grey counties. The Four County Labor Market Planning Board is one of 25 such boards across the province of Ontario that track labor market data across a certain economic region. And throughout this podcast series, we're going to be delving into a number of the new reports that the Four County Labor Market Planning Board has put together that delve into some of the deeper challenges and ultimately solutions as well that make our labor market so unique. We're starting the first episode this week. We'll be chatting with Jordan Meisel, who is a labor market research coordinator with the Four County Labor Market Planning Board. And we're going to be chatting a little bit about their local labor market plan in this episode. And I asked Jordan to kind of start things off, essentially what the local labor market plan is and what sort of information is available in it.
Our local labor market plan, we call it the LLMP, the acronym for short. So the purpose is really kind of like a pulse check on our region's labor market. So it identifies some of the challenges, the opportunities that our region is facing from a labor market perspective. So the report itself is quite comprehensive. It provides a detailed breakdown of our region's labor market. So it looks at things like population dynamics, employment by industry and by occupation, business count data by sector and by business type. We look at various income data, job vacancies, migration characteristics, so who's coming into our region and who's leaving our region, as well as data on educational attainment and how that changes over time. So we really strive to use a variety of data sources to provide that comprehensive and holistic picture of what's going on in our region's labor market. And the really great thing about the LLMP is that we've been carrying out this report for over 10 years now. So we started back in 2014. And because we've been doing it for such a long period of time, it really allows us to identify and monitor any major shifts and trends that are happening in our region's labor force over a period of time.
So, Jordan, I wonder, what sort of challenges or issues were kind of identified in this year's plan that are impacting our region when it comes to the local labor market right now?
Sure. So we say a lot here that our region is unique, and that's, not only our geography or our landscape, but also our labor markets. So we have some unique characteristics that kind of set us apart from some of the other regions in the province. So to start, our population skews older, and the rate at which we're getting older is happening much more quickly in our region. So in 2025, over 25% of our region's overall population were aged 65 plus, so our senior population. This is relative to only 18% at the provincial level. So, kind of the direct impact on the labor market from an aging population perspective is that when older individuals retire or exit the labor market, the number of people available for work decreases, which can result in labor shortages, as we know. And then the impact is kind of heightened in a sense in our region because we are experiencing things like low unemployment rates and a low supply of available labor. That create challenges for local employers in terms of filling that replacement demand, we call it, for those older workers exiting the workforce. Some of the more indirect impacts we see playing out, for example, are in our local healthcare systems. So we know as people age, they typically rely more heavily on healthcare services. So with that increased demand, there's challenges with the labor supply keeping up. So we kind of have an imbalance in a sense with more and more dependents, more and more seniors accessing these services, and a workforce that is struggling to keep pace with that demand. Another challenge facing our region is issues surrounding retaining and attracting that youth demographic. And this is an issue in many rural communities in the province. So while our region's labor force size is increasing, and that's a positive, the number of youth in the labor force has remained either stable or it's actually seen some decreases in some recent years. So this is suggesting that there's some retention and attraction concerns that need to kind of be addressed a little bit. And what's interesting about this youth demographic, and when I'm referring to youth, I'm referring to the 15 to 24-year-old demographic. So what's interesting is that they do have very high participation rates in the workforce. And actually, our region has the highest youth participation rate of all economic regions in the province. But as I mentioned, it seems that retention is an issue. And so one of our reports this year, carried out by my colleague He May, her report is titled Youth on the Move, Examining the Why, live on our website now, and it goes into greater detail on some of those what we call push and pull factors as to why local youth may decide to leave the region, stay in the region, or perhaps leave the region and later return to the region. So I would encourage everyone to give that one a read. It's really great and detailed data on some of that youth demographic. Another challenge is chronically low unemployment rates. So I use the word chronically because we've been experiencing very low unemployment rates for about a decade now, especially relative to the province. So in 2025, the annual unemployment rate in the four-county region was 4.6%. That's compared to 7.7% at the Ontario level. So we are always, significantly lower than the province. And some people may ask, like, oh, isn't a low unemployment rate a good thing? Like that implies that more people are working, right? Um, and it's a little bit more complex than that. So yes, from a job seeker perspective, low unemployment rate can be a good thing because we typically see a higher number of job openings or job vacancies, we sometimes call them, and there's probably less competition for jobs. So you may have some negotiating power there if you're looking for work. But from an employer perspective, low unemployment rates can make it really challenging to hire staff and, sustain their workforce or grow their workforce because there's a limited number of people that are looking or available for work. So a low unemployment rate is definitely one of our longest standing and defining characteristics of our region's labor market.
And Jordan, I'm
Well,
glad that you brought up the reports, because in this series we are going to dig into detail into those individual reports, which includes the one that you brought up that Key May did, who we'll talk to in this series, Youth on the Move, Examining the Why. The reports also include Navigating the Future of Care, which we're going to dig into as well, and Closing Workforce Gaps, Leveraging Newcomer Talents. Again, you can read all of those reports. They are out now on planningboard.ca/reports.
awesome. Thanks, Ryan. The last challenge I just wanted to touch on quickly is we do have a high cost of living area. So each year, the Ontario Living Wage Network puts out an updated living wage for several regions in the province. And we actually have the second highest living wage. So our living wage was 24.60 in 2025. So we are the second highest, just behind the GTA. Um, so unfortunately, we kind of have a double whammy. So we have a very high cost of living, and we also have one of the lower average offered hourly wages in the province. So this may push some individuals to leave our region in pursuit of a more comfortable cost of living and also a higher wage. So that's something to keep in mind too.
And I'm sure that that is something that definitely factors into the youth challenge that, is obviously delved into a little bit more in Key May's report, which again, we're going to delve into in depth during this series. I wonder as well, as we continue to look at the local labor market plan, in terms of maybe some of the unique employment aspects or advantages our region possesses. What are some of the kind of positives or opportunities that we're seeing in our region? You mentioned how unique it is. What are maybe some of the unique things that we have that are a positive for not only job seekers, but employers as well?
Absolutely. So to start, we have very high demand in some of our region's key employment sectors, and the occupations within these sectors typically provide, comfortable wages and they're quite stable. So, for example, in healthcare, we're of course seeing lots of demand there, skilled trades, construction, manufacturing, and developments in clean energy are also lending to lots of really good, stable job opportunities in the region. Another positive, and I want to say it's kind of a strive in the right direction, is we're seeing employment income move more in line with provincial medians. So in the past, we saw some really large gaps between median employment income in our region compared to median employment income in the province. So back in 2018, for example, we had a 27% gap between our region and the province. In 2023, that gap shrunk to just 8%. So while we're still lower than the province, it's kind of showing a positive sign that we're moving closer to provincial levels and employment income is continuing to rise, which is great. Another opportunity is we have really strong business growth in the region. So that's great news from an economic development standpoint. And we have, lots of people opting to open businesses here, which is great. So more people are choosing to start businesses here, which is great. And it's really just kind of helping the overall economic landscape here, which is awesome.
I wonder, in terms of, obviously, one thing people will wonder about with some of this information are some of the challenges. And, we've kind of gone over those. I wonder, though, in terms of maybe some solutions that are identified in the local labor market plan with respect to those challenges. I'm sure that that's going to be something that people are very interested in. If you could kind of give us some of the solutions that are maybe pointed out in the plan to address some of those challenges that you've talked about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So towards the end of the report, we identify a number of, we call them long range action items. And we feel these are items that are needed to support workforce development in the region and address some of those workforce challenges that I touched on. So some of these action items include supporting housing and transportation challenges. We know these are large barriers, especially in rural communities like ours. And we also need to support those who are, and I refer to these people as marginally attached. So people that are marginally attached to the workforce are people who are not currently working, but they are available for work and they have a desire to work, but they have, some barriers in place that are preventing them from actually taking that step forward and actually securing work. So that could be, for example, someone dealing with a disability, maybe a parent that needs work hours that correspond with school hours. So looking at strategies, how we can better support this group to re-enter the workforce with suitable arrangements in mind. And this kind of leads to another action item, which is the promotion of flexible work arrangements. So that could be, anything from remote work, hybrid work, flexible working hours, job sharing, consulting, kind of that whole bundle there. So what we see is that the number of people not in the labor force in the region continues to rise. It actually reached a record high in 2025, and that's due largely in part to that aging population that I mentioned. And with more and more people not in the labor force, this is going to create challenges in terms of workforce sustainability and growth. So we need to really look at flexible work arrangements and how that may encourage some of this group to perhaps stay in the labor force longer or maybe re-enter with flexible work arrangements in mind. So there was actually an interesting study done by Statistics Canada in 2023. And they found that among people who had not completely retired but were planning to retire in the next coming years, more than half, so 55%, reported that they would continue working longer if they could work part-time. A little less, so 49% reported that they would continue working fewer hours if it didn't affect their pension. So as we know, as I mentioned, we have that aging population. We have a large mass of individuals set to retire in the coming years. If we focus on those flexible work arrangements or reduced hours, we can potentially help alleviate some of those labor shortages by keeping them in the workforce a little bit longer. We know that desire is there. We just need to take into account that flexibility needs to be top of mind.
So, Jordan, obviously, these reports that we're going to dig into extensively again during this series, including what we've done here with the local labor plan, just in terms of, I know that gathering all this data, it's a big undertaking for you guys, and I know that there is an interactive aspect as well to the Four County Labor Market Planning Board. You guys are always looking for input. There's a lot of surveys that get done, and people can find all of that and participate and give their feedback on stuff like this on the website.
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to our website, planningboard.ca, all of the reports are live on our website now. So there's a button where you can download the report. There's also a button where you can submit your report feedback, and we would really appreciate your feedback. It provides us some really great insight as to what we're doing well, what issues you want us to examine in future years. And I just wanted to mention as well, another part of our work that we do is data requests. So we've had a lot of organizations come to us if they're writing, for example, a grant application or submitting a funding application. Many times it will ask for relevant labor market information. So that's something that we can assist with as well as helping with that labor market data aspect of things.
Awesome stuff. Well, again, all of this information that we'll be discussing not only today, but throughout this series, again, you can find at planningboard.ca/reports. And there's a lot of interactivity as well. You can get involved. You're going to be able to find these podcasts on the website across the 4 county labor market planning boards, social media feeds, and of course, on YouTube. Jordan Meisel, Labor Market Research Coordinator with the 4 county Labor Market Planning Board. Really, really appreciate your insight today, and I'm excited to delve into these reports.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Ryan.